On behalf of Glendale Library Arts and Culture, welcome to Queering Glendale 80s Style Talk Show. I'm Anahid Oshagan, co-curator of ReflectSpace Gallery, an intimate gallery located inside Glendale Central Library. Our mission is to shed light on social justice issues through art and archive that impact Glendale and the greater global community. Queering Glendale 80s Style Talk Show is part of the City of Glendale's Be the Change series, which embraces and pledges inclusion, diversity, equity, and anti-racism. As part of the Be the Change series, the City of Glendale has already presented commemorations such as the Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month, the Armenian Genocide Remembrance Month, Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and currently LGBTQIA plus Pride. The series also examined the 1-year anniversary of the 2020 racial injustice protests and the 100-year anniversary of the Tulsa race massacre, and also examined racism with the watershed exhibit called Reckoning, Racism and Resistance in Glendale. Like this virtual talk show, Be the Change series includes virtual lectures, exhibits, and online programming with authors, curators, historians, and community activists. Glendale's Library Arts and Culture Department and ReflectSpace Gallery are excited to join forces with GlendaleOUT to bring you this entertaining, enlightening, and educational 80s style talk show about our queer community here in Glendale. GlendaleOUT is a Glendale-based grassroots LGBTQIA+ organization whose goal is to ensure that the queer community is part of Glendale's broader narrative through political action, community building, and social connection. Without further ado, I'm thrilled to introduce our Queering Glendale 80s Style Talk Show hosts, Demi Tetrakian and Jesse Martin. Demi is a senior at Hoover High School and a rising star social activist and artist. She is proud member of GlendaleOUT and co-president of Hoover's Gay Straight Alliance. Jesse, who lived in Glendale for many years, is the charismatic star of YouTube's hit show, Old Gays. He's a 9-month prostate cancer survivor who attributes his survival to the love of many friends and the fulfillment from the Old Gays show. Demi, Jesse, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Demi and I are so happy to be with you today, and welcome to Queering Glendale.
Welcome, everyone. Great to see you.
We are going to have a lot of fun. It's a family affair here with some questions that we're going to ask some community people. So we hope that you're going to enjoy the time with us. We're going to ask first a question to Dave. And the question is, Dave, how do you identify and what is your coming out story?
Well, I identify as a gay cisgender man, and I'm very happy to be here. My coming out took a long time. I came up in a period of time when it seemed like there weren't any other gay people around me. It was just because I didn't know anyone. But in college, and even earlier in college, I really knew where my attractions were. And then gradually I began coming to a point where I knew that I was gay, but I wasn't willing to accept that. And so I got married to a woman, and we had a child, and I was married for a number of years until I finally realized that I couldn't change who I was. I tried for a while to change myself through reparative therapy and other things, but it just doesn't work. And eventually I accepted myself, and I'm so glad that I did, because it has made such a difference in my entire life.
Yes, in all of our lives. Also would like to ask that to Yali, if they can help us out here.
Sure. Hi, my name is Yali. I'm non-binary and pansexual. That's how I identify. And yeah, coming out for me was maybe not quite as long as for Dave, but it was like quite a process. Like it started out kind of like questioning things when I was like 12 or 13, but a lot of like societal messaging really telling me that wasn't something I should do, wasn't something I could do. You know, they were just like, you are a man, you like women. And it was like a lot of years of like questioning and learning and understanding. And then I came out a couple years ago, and it feels great. It feels really great to be like my true self.
It is freeing, isn't it? Yes. And last but not least on this question, Johnny.
Hi everyone, I'm Johnny. I identify as a gay man. My pronouns are he, him. And my coming out story, you know, I knew I was gay from day one. And it really started, I have to say, with The Little Mermaid. She was an icon, she was a hero to me, she still is. And just like Ariel, I wanted to be part of another world. And so even at age 3, when I saw the movie for the first time, I knew I wanted a Prince Eric and I wanted to be rescued from the ocean and be part of that amazing gay world. However, I did grow up also in a religious household. So I think that there was a little bit of, I don't want to say, it's kind of difficult sometimes when you are growing up in a religious household. And if you feel like the rest of your religion is telling you, this is wrong or you shouldn't be this way. But thankfully, I had a lot of supportive people around me, family members, friends. And although I did wait until I was 18 years old, I think that a lot of teens struggle with whether or not my family is going to accept me for who I am. Am I going to be kicked out? What kind of fears am I going to be facing? And that's really the reality of it. And so similarly, I waited and I wanted to make sure that it was the right time. So once I felt like it was the appropriate time to come out, at 18 years old, I remember talking to a friend of mine at high school, and we were having conversations, and all throughout that year was a lot of, who am I and really how do I identify? And I told her, I said, I need to talk to you. And she said, sure, what's up? And I said, I think I'm bi. And she just looked at me and she said, oh, okay. And then we left it at that. And we started to walk away and we both went our separate ways. This was after school. And like literally I did this like turn around and I was like, no, I'm gay. And I like bounded over to her and she's like, I know. We both basically like just rejoiced in the parking lot and we're like, we know you're so gay. And I was so excited to finally say it. So I came out at my high school to a friend. And then later I came out to my best friend and my family. And the hardest one was honestly my grandparents, because I thought somewhere in there that I would disappoint them by being who I was. And so even though I had been doing drag and dressing up as Ariel this whole time, when I told my grandma, she was kind of like, you're what? And I said, I'm gay. She's like, you're what? I'm like, the drag didn't tip you off. But my grandpa was so loving about it. And when I told him, he was just like, I still love you for who you are. And of course, all my cousins were the same way too. So I feel very supported by them. So that's my coming out story.
Great.
Thank you, Johnny, for the great answer. Before we move on, I believe Eric also wanted to respond to this question. So.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Adamian. I use he, him pronouns, and I identify as a cisgender gay man. And my coming out story, like many people's, it's very layered and it happened over many years. But it started off with me trusting in a very personal, close friend of mine, and just kind of telling her about my feelings for one of my friends that I had. And that kind of lifted a weight from me that I'd been carrying for such a long time. And this was straight out of high school. So I was kind of like, all right, I'm out of high school. I can now think about myself in ways that I wasn't afforded to think about when I was growing up. So since then on, I just kind of started telling friends and more friends and more friends. And eventually I had very difficult conversations with my family. I'm Armenian, Iranian. So thankfully, my family has been very accepting, and they've embraced me just as they used to before. So I'm very grateful about that, and very lucky to have a family like that. But it's been a journey. I would say that even till this day, every day I come out a little bit, like with different things and different people that I talk to. So it's like almost a lifelong process. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah, completely understandable. But our second question is, do you have a negative experience that you've been able to turn into a teaching moment? And first off, we have Maddie for this one. Take the stage.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I am a senior and I'm bisexual. My pronouns are she, they. So before freshman year started, it was the summer after 8th grade, and it was when I was first starting to really explore my gender identity. I came to the conclusion at the time that I was gender fluid, and that's what I was comfortable being known as. So I posted all over my socials and I told all of my friends that I'm gender fluid and, these are all my pronouns. And I even had a preferred name that I wanted to be referred to as. I got a lot of negative feedback, and it turned out that a lot of my friends didn't support me in that. So I did lose a lot of friends from that, and I received some bullying from it, and it was going into high school, so couldn't really escape from that. So then I made another post after receiving all that bullying that summer, and I was like, haha, never mind. I thought I was gender fluid, but I'm not, because the bullying just got too much, and I didn't want to start high school off that way. So I think what I've learned from that experience is that I shouldn't have let people push me back into the closet, because exploring your gender identity is a really important part of your adolescence, I feel like. And I was sort of pushed away from that whole idea until last year, maybe. So a whole 3 years later, I didn't explore any part of me until last year. So I guess I just shouldn't have let it get to me that much, but at that time, going to a new school, it was just really overwhelming.
Thank you. Yeah, high school is really hard in that sense. But up next, we have Charlie.
Hi, everyone. I am Charlie. I am also non-binary, gender fluid, and bisexual. So the story that I have about exploring my identity, the negative one, often there is. It's why people remain in the closet and, only come out until they feel safe to and supported to do so, which is why we do these types of things. So for me, coming to the bisexual identity label choice has been a long process, because I actually used to identify more with the pansexual label because of the things that I absorbed when I was younger, like in middle school and high school, a combination of biphobia, bi erasure happens all the time. Negative stereotypes associated with bisexuality led me to a totally wrong understanding of what bisexuality meant. And so, I don't know if those assumptions still exist today, because I have, drawn myself into different parts of society and learned. So I know, a lot of people around me don't necessarily think this way anymore. But it was, presumed that you were promiscuous, untrustworthy, you only liked men or women, and it wasn't an inclusive term, when all those things are not the case. And it took me a while to unlearn that. And more so the personal learning experience from that, it was a teaching moment for myself when I came to understand more and more, and how that is actually an okay term for me as someone who is attracted to the same and other genders. There are different people have different understandings of what it means, but generally that's a commonly accepted one. And so I actually prefer to use that because of the bi-erasure that still exists today, even in the mainstream LGBTQ communities. Yeah.
Yeah, biphobia and bi-erasure is still a part of like everything we're going through. So up next we have Dave.
Yeah, I grew up, as I mentioned, in a conservative religious background, and I became a pastor. And as a result of that, I became acquainted with a number of different ways to help with young people. Eventually, I helped with the forming of a group called the Intercollegiate Gay SPA group, and that led me to into understanding more about how things were working on campuses with GSA groups. And some of the groups that I worked with began establishing times where they were meeting. And this was a challenging time for especially students on a conservative campus. One of those students attempted suicide. And as a result of that, some of the people that he came to know through the GSA group helped him to realize that this was something that was that he could be accepting of himself. And so that became a teachable moment. And as a result of that, he created a T-shirt, and you're going to see it on the screen in just a moment, that shows what happened to him after he met that GSA group. It became a teachable moment for all of us. And for me, it really helped me to understand more what it means to be accepting of people. He created this T-shirt, Love Makes You Hope. And we're so glad that he is still alive and able to be part of helping other people to know and accept who they are.
Beautiful. I think we're moving on to our next question, which Jesse is going to be continuing.
Sounds good here. Thank you all. Those are great stories. The next question asks, how has your ethnic or racial identity informed your queer identity? And let's start off with Maddie here again.
Hi again. So my family is Lebanese. They came here from Lebanon about 30 years ago. So growing up, I was really Catholic and very much raised in an Arab household. And I was not introduced to anything gay or just accepting until I was maybe 12. I knew from a very young age that I did like girls and everybody pretty much. I just didn't know that they're like that it was a thing. Like I remember being in kindergarten and having crushes on both boys and girls, but my family never had those discussions with me that made me realize that like it was a thing, I guess. So I continued to grow up in that very Catholic Arab household, not knowing anything. I mean, one of my aunts had one gay friend maybe, but I literally did not know he was gay until 3 years ago. So I really wasn't taught any of that, but I still grew up knowing that I liked girls. And it wasn't until like 7th grade that one of my friends like introduced me to the whole idea of being bisexual. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like I grew up that way, but I had no idea because my family never had any of those discussions with me. Like I literally didn't know being gay was a thing until 4th grade. And I feel like that's a very long time to go without knowing what gay meant. I don't know if other people have had similar experiences of not knowing being gay was a thing until like an older age, but that was my experience growing up Arab and very Catholic.
Just say you're muted. Just say you're still muted. That's okay. You're still muted.
And I'm just running my mouth here too, talking to myself. I'm so sorry about that. I want to continue on with this question again is it Yali?
Yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I actually didn't even sign up for this question, but I do have an answer.
They added you.
For sure, yeah. So something that I've struggled with a little bit is like linguistically trying to get my family who like I'm from Israel, and so they all speak Hebrew, and Hebrew, like a lot of other languages, is very gendered, right? Every word is either like feminine or masculine. Even the word for they or them, there's like masculine they and feminine they. And I'm trying to explain to my mother and like my grandma, and I'm just like, I'm this thing, and I just literally can't explain it to them in their language. And it's like very confusing. I know like I've read some stuff about different efforts that they're doing there, and like in some other countries. Like I was looking for like what they do in Spanish with like they them. Like there are like various different ones that I've seen. So it's still something that's being navigated, and it is really interesting. This is like one of those things that makes me like pretty happy to live in an English speaking country. Just like, oh, we have a really, really easy they, them, no gender attached. It's like nice and easy. Let me see. The question is right on racial and ethnic identity. Other than that, yeah, I mean, Judaism and like Israel, like it is pretty traditional. I think I've gotten pretty lucky in general. Like my family is like pretty open, and I feel like Judaism, maybe like at least relative to Catholicism, is like a little bit more lenient. Although it really depends like on what level of religion, because like the really Orthodox Jews, like
Yeah.
they would not be down with anything that we're doing right here today. But you know, a lot of the more secular Jews that are like, oh yeah, sure, like it's no big deal. Like yeah, like I know a non-binary rabbi, like it's pretty cool. Yep. Thank
May
you.
I pop onto that, because a lot of my experience is related to Yali's growing up in a Jewish family and also having lived in Israel when I was younger. So like I'm also familiar with the very gendered nature of Hebrew. I most favor the Rav Migdalit initiative. I don't know. You probably are familiar with that, Yali. If you're not, I'll send it to you. There are a lot of places now that are introducing this on signage to make it like more inclusive. But something that didn't get touched on yet, something that has always been a source of like amusement and like a place of playfulness for me, is that the gendered words, pronouns for he and she are in Hebrew, who is he and he is she. So that's something that I've like held with me for a long time. Yeah, I think about that a lot. And as far as my ethnic identity and forming my queer identity, they play a lot back and forth. I grew up in a pretty progressive and semi-secular household, but I also grew up Jewish in a heavily Christian area. So that definitely informed my sense of self as living as someone who is different than what is understood the norm as to be. So that has helped me navigate my identity over the years.
Great. Thank y'all so much for those stories. Demi, back to you.
I think Eric wants to go for this one as well. I just wanted to pop in and say I'm really enjoying hearing all of these stories. And after Eric's response, I kind of wanted to explain what bi-erasure and bi-phobia is, because it's something that maybe not everyone watching understands. But Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I'm Armenian Iranian. I was born and raised in Iran. And you know, also for myself growing up, the idea of being gay was not really something that I thought about, even though from a very early age, I knew that I was attracted to other men. But it wasn't, as Madeline said, it wasn't a thing. So it was just kind of like, okay, great, you're attracted to men, but you're still gonna get married to a woman and you're gonna have kids and blah, 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 blah. And then that whole situation didn't really change in my mind and for me until I was able to kind of distance myself from my Armenianness and from my, you know, just a community really, and to kind of go in my own space and in my own zone and just really think through this, add on to that, like, you know, religious upbringing and everything. And, you know, it's a lot to deal with, and it's not a space that's conducive of exploring your identities in a way that everybody should be allowed to, especially in your developmental years as a teenager. So unfortunately for me, I would say that I had to distance myself from my culture, from my family, from my community, to really think about who I am in a way, and what do all of these things like my sexuality and sometimes, you know, somewhat of a queer gender and all of these things mean to me. So it wasn't until I joined the board of the LGBTQ plus Armenian Society, also known as GALIS, that I was able to kind of marry the two and more identities together, because I walked into my first GALIS event and it was a room full of Armenian people who were also queer, and it was just wild. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are happy. They're like just thriving. They're, you know, they have a community, and now I'm becoming a part of this community. So I guess what I want to really highlight with this is the importance of forming ethnic and racial based LGBTQ collectives and communities and organizations, because it really gives you a space to explore yourself as the whole person that you are, rather than you know, different facets of your identity by themselves and living a double life or a triple life or whatever it is that many of us end up doing growing up. So it's been difficult, but as I said before, thankfully my family in the recent years, they've been very supportive. So that's been like a bonus in dealing with all of this. But you know, it's really tough. So to whoever's going through a similar experience, whether you're at a younger age or a more mature age, however old you are, it's more power to you, and you can reach out to me to talk if you want to.
Thank you. Yeah, we as humans, we're more than just like our sexuality or our gender or our racial like expression. So it's so important to have like this combination of everything, especially in Glendale, since we have so many different people living here. There's so many minorities and such. And to tap on that, I think it's really important to talk about just bi-erasure for a quick second, just because, again, I don't think everyone knows what that is. But that is when bisexuality gets erased from both media, from experiences, because people see it as just a phase, or it's like not real. It's just like an in-between thing, like you're trying to figure yourself out, when in reality, it's very real. A lot of people identify as that, and it's incredibly unfair and unjust to try to erase it when it's such a big part. And I just wanted to note that, because so many of us here are bi. Charlie?
To add on to that, a lot of notable LGBTQ figures that we think of either just being gay or just being lesbian are actually bi. It wasn't until, for example, it wasn't until I was out of college. This isn't about a particular celebrity thought of as being just gay or lesbian, but more so about LGBTQ history. The person who is considered the mother of Pride was actually a bisexual Jewish woman. And I did not know that, despite being in explicitly queer communities and spaces since I was in high school.
Yeah, and that is why bi erasure is such an issue. But because we are celebrating Jewel City Pride, our next question is about Glendale and a specific Glendale experience that has to do with what we're celebrating. And first off, for that, we have Johnny.
Thank you, Demi. And I think this right here, this is a great example of what we're doing. So with Jewel City Pride, it was originally an initiative that started with GlendaleOUT. And if you don't know, again, I think that we spoke about GlendaleOUT, but again, GlendaleOUT is the grassroots organization for Glendale City. And it is made up of people who are devoting their time. It's not, it's not like anyone gets paid for this. So we wanted to create an event, create different opportunities for people within the community to experience Pride during June. And so we started to reach out to all these different businesses and organizations, and we were all given the task of being the fairy ambassadors. So I was a fairy ambassador for Glendale Library Arts and Culture, who is working on this with us. And so for me, when we talk about a specific opportunity or maybe something within Glendale, I just think it's so amazing that we could reach out to people. On this weekend, we're having a pop-up. We did one at the beginning of the month at the Glendale Galleria. So the Galleria worked with us to not only allow us to be on property to hand out Pride information, bracelets, things like that, but they even put up our Jewel City icon on the marquee inside their digital marquee. And they even lit up the board with rainbow colors, also going and driving around, and you see at the Alex Theater, and we did another pop-up there. And on the board, again, they have out there glendaleout.org. And it's just amazing the fact that we have all these different places. There's also the Museum of Neon Art that's participating. We have the Library of Glendale. So here at Central, people can come and make their Pride, giveaways, or like, there's also going to be fans that they're making as well. So it's just so many different opportunities. And if you're interested in any of those things, we'll be posting them on social media for GlendaleOUT. So you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook. But it's just so amazing that a city would come together and, even at night, you're walking by and you can see that City Hall is lit up in rainbow colors. Like, it's so amazing. So I'm really excited. Plus, there's even an event tomorrow as well. So again, there's things constantly happening all throughout the month of June. And it's just been such an amazing experience to partner with everyone and to be able to, just feel like I'm accepted by my city, and my city is so excited to celebrate who I am and the queer community. So we have so many amazing allies and so many amazing queer people right here in Glendale. It's spectacular. It's amazing.
Glendale has come a long ways from when I lived there in '82, and it's awesome. It's just going up, which is wonderful. Our next question that I'd like to ask is there something that you can share to help a younger version of yourself? And we're going to start with you, Dave, since you're an old gay too.
Why, thank you, Jess. So yes, I think that we have to realize that we're all on a journey, and it's a journey for all of us through our life, whether we come out when we're very young or older like I was. But it is a journey, and that journey means that you involve other people. And one of the things that I have learned over the period of time that I want to share with other people who might be younger is that if you have parents or friends, don't expect them to accept something the very first day you say something, because parents have to go through the same process of coming out that you did. And it may have taken you a while to get to the point that you're at. So expect that it may take them a while as well. And know that they're going to be on a journey, and they're starting the journey at the time that you tell them that you are coming out as gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender. So any of those things are an experience for them. And it's great for you to recognize that everybody's on that journey, and it takes a while as we all move through that journey.
That's a good one, Dave. Maddie, should I repeat that question for you?
No, I got it.
Okay. Okay.
So, like I said before, one of my friends first introduced the idea of being bisexual to me in 7th grade, and that was when I actually put a label on myself, I guess. And up until 1 or 2 years ago, maybe, I jumped back and forth between bisexual and lesbian because I genuinely I couldn't tell, and I just I really couldn't decide which one I identified as, you know. I never really questioned my attraction to women or people of other genders, but I always kind of questioned my attraction to men. So that's why I would jump back and forth a lot. But I think something that I would like to tell my younger self is to just not worry about labels. I always just had this extra pressure on myself for some reason to put a label on myself when it really was not necessary. I didn't need to. Nobody was asking that of me. Literally, none of my family or friends were like prying me to decide which one I was. So it just wasn't as important as I thought it was. And even now, like the label bisexual, if people were to ask me like, hey, what's your sexuality, that's what I would say. But in general, I think I just identify as queer, and it took me years to get to this point where I realized that it really doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just me. I like who I like. I wish I realized that sooner.
You got it. You got it, girl. Let's go to Yali for the same question, please. Here.
Yeah, I wanted to just add on a little bit to what Maddie just said. Like, I completely agree. And like, if that wasn't your answer, like that would have been my answer. Cause yeah, I spent so much time trying to be like, oh, like gender queer, gender fluid, trans, non-binary, like all these different bisexual, pansexual, right? And like, when it comes down to it, like, if you ask me, like, I'll tell you, like, I'm non-binary. But when I ask like my brain, I'm like, does the word non-binary perfectly encapsulate like what goes on up here? No, definitely not. You know, what's going on up here just is like what it is. And non-binary is like a word that helps me to explain to other people to understand kind of what's going on up here. So labels are kind of only useful in that sort of way, and they can help you like understand yourself. Like there was a lot of me like looking up just like lists of different labels of sexualities to be like, do I feel this? No. Do I feel this? Oh, maybe, like stuff like that. Anyways, like my advice that I would want to give my younger self is kind of just like explain sort of like where I feel like a lot of like homophobia comes from. And a lot of it, it's like very complex. So like I hope my brain can like get us there. So and I'd like to kind of refer to one of the other questions that was like, is there like a teachable moment? So this was like my teachable moment that I'd like to tell my younger self. So a year or two ago, I was like walking out. I'm wearing a crop top. Okay, nothing crazy. I'm not out in like full on drag, full face of makeup. A crop top, and this dude. I'm like walking up to school, up to Glendale Community College, and this dude in his car stops at the gas station right there on the corner, and I see him filming me, and I'm like, what's going on? And I just like flip him off, you know. I'm like, this annoying guy. And he gets out of his car and he says to me, he's like, it's not Halloween. And I'm just like what's going on here? Like, why is this guy bugging me? And I'm kind of just walk off. I don't really let it bug me. I'm just trying to get to class. And I'm thinking about it. And he was, you know, in his big black truck wearing big all black, like no colors. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, that dude is trapped. He's been told his whole life that to be a man, to be masculine, to get respect, you have to like really fit this narrow kind of mold of what it means to like be a man. And here I was not doing that. And that kind of like threatens his whole concept of masculinity. Because if I'm doing something that is like different from that, and I'm still happy and I'm still living and like free, no one's really bugging me, then that like shatters his whole thing. That means he could be wearing colors, but he's like cut himself off from that, or like society's cut him off from that. And to make himself feel less bad, he's got to make me feel bad. Because if I'm less than him, then that means he's good. But the lesson here is that I wasn't less than him. This guy was just like sad. I felt really bad for him, honestly. And this, I guess, is the lesson, is like hate usually comes from something very like pitiable. Like these people, like, yeah, they're just trying to find themselves and they haven't found themselves, so they got to make other people feel worse. And that's it. Thank you.
Our great world of society trying to knock the next person down, but we just have to keep getting up. Demi?
So up next we have Eric, and he's gonna talk a little bit about the word queer and what it means now.
Yeah, and if I may also add a message to my younger self too, it would be that you have time, you have a lot of time. And I know that there is this sense of urgency of finding out who you are. And guess what? I'm almost 30 and still working on that. So I would say that to my younger self. And I also would say that the pain that you're experiencing, that you are trying to turn into, like channel it into other things, is pain that was put on you by a society that is too rigid to accept you as who you are. It's not something that comes from within. It's not symptomatic, or it's not representative of something that's wrong with you. It is entirely carrying other people's trauma, especially having to do with sexuality and gender. So I would give myself a very big hug and just say to hang in there and take it easy, chill out. Now, when it comes to the word queer, I know we've been talking in this lovely event, we've been throwing around the word queer, and I just want to acknowledge the fact that queer at some point was used as a derogatory term to refer to LGBTQ people. But just like many other terms in history, queer was also reclaimed in the late 1970s, in 1980s. It was reclaimed to be a positive word. It was reclaimed to be an empowering word by LGBTQ people themselves. And right now, queer serves as an umbrella term to refer to all the identities, LGBTQIA2S+, and many more identities under the queer umbrella. So I hope for those of you who are watching, you can take note of that. And there's always room for conversation about the word queer, and it's an ever evolving term. And it's probably going to take on new meanings in the next minute or so. So I hope that was a good explanation of distinguishing the historical queer versus the new queer.
Thank you, Eric, for the explanation. One of the other things that we kind of want to talk about is a little message to everyone watching who's either still in the process of finding out who they are, or it's just something that's been on their mind, or they're still like struggling internally. It's okay, take your time. It's okay to, you know, take whatever length of time you need to even, you know, come out to yourself. And it's a process and it's not easy. So there's a lot of people supporting you. And even if it doesn't feel like some of your personal groups, there's people like us here who are sharing information and, you know, making a safe space. So you are loved, and it'll take time, but you'll get there. And we hope it's soon. But whenever it is, you're free to join us and just be yourself. I think Johnny has something else to speak on. Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, we're talking about what would we tell our younger selves, and I'm going to get back to that in a moment. But I just think it's so interesting, all of the different terms and the way that people feel and the way that people identify. I mean, I don't think I'm that old, but I feel like when I was coming out, those weren't really options. And whether or not it was something that wasn't really talked about, or maybe it just wasn't mainstream enough. I mean, I'm sure people felt that way, but you know, it was kind of like, you're straight, you're bi, you're gay. Like those were the options. And so when I came out, I mean, when I was a child, again, going back to Ariel, I wanted to be Ariel. I didn't want to just be like Ariel. So when I dreamt about getting married, I wanted, to be, I guess I wanted to be in a wedding dress. So FYI to my future husband, I wanted to wear the dress. But, I think that that's just how I identified as a kid. I think that without the limitations of society, kind of like what Yali has spoken to and what Eric has spoken to, I mean, I never kind of said to myself, well, you're attracted to men, but you're going to marry a woman anyway, just because that's what society tells you. I felt like I was very nonconformist even as a child. And I was already like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. So that's my thoughts on as far as like how people identify. And I think it's so awesome that there is such now a wide spectrum. Like it's maybe not even the best way. And I think that we've talked about this before, maybe non-binary isn't even the best term to, to explain it, how someone feels. But I just think it's awesome that now society is understanding and we're having these conversations and we're talking about pronouns and all that fun stuff. But when we talk about what would I tell my younger self? Well, whether it's regarding being gay, whether it's about decisions that you're making, whether it's about coming out, whatever it might be, I actually look at it in a future mindset. And whenever I'm thinking about something, I tell myself, what would I have told myself, like, let's say 20 years from now, or 5 years from now, or whatever, to today? And so for me, I always tell myself, don't let anything hold you back. Don't not do something because you're afraid. So I think that's the same thing that I would have told myself as a teenager. And I think I probably looked at it that way, where I don't want to look back 20 years from now and regret not coming out, regret not dating, regret not doing that amazing thing that makes you feel special and makes you feel like who you are. So maybe I would have told myself, obviously with hindsight, like, hey, come out at an even younger age. Like, there's not going to be any problems, you're going to be perfectly safe. But there's always those hesitations. And I get it that not everyone can be in that perfect spot where they can feel 100% like, oh yeah, no worries. Like, I'm going to come out and my family is going to be cool with it. And my friends are going to be cool with it. And we're all going to have a party. But even just to give a shout out to like my stepmom, for instance, when I wanted to be Ariel, when I was like 3 or 4 years old, she joined PFLAG. And for people who don't know, that's basically Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. So she was a PFLAG member here when I am 4 years old. So I think that sometimes you have those amazing fairy godmothers in your life. And I'm just so grateful for my stepmom and for my cousins and my best friend. And, even talking about my best friend, I don't know if he's watching this, but we all have different journeys. And even though I came out at 18, he didn't come out until he was 30. So even though I'm his best friend, he still felt like, you know what, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's because my family, whatever it might be. So even if we have that perfect, scenario, you still don't feel it. So you got to do it when it's the right time. But that's my message to everyone.
Thank you. And that's something really important that we want to showcase with this. And another aspect of the pop-ups that GlendaleOUT is doing is something with the Alex Theater that Dave wants to talk about.
Yeah, just in the last week, we've been able to tie rainbow ribbons on the gates of the Alex Theater, and the marquee there has a quote from Charles Aznavour, and I was reminded of that by Yali when he was talking about becoming a man, because it's a quote from his music that what makes a man. So if you happen to drive by the Alex in the next couple of days, you'll be able to still see that marquee. It'll be coming down on Friday. And then on Saturday, there will be new posters going up at the Alex Theater about a couple of people who live in Glendale or did live in Glendale. Margaret Cho, who still lives in Glendale, her poster will be up at the Alex Theater. And Mark Canfield, who was an Olympic swimmer who lived in Glendale until he died. And so we're helping to highlight some of these people who are people in Glendale who have had an impact on our history. So thought it would, since we hadn't mentioned that before, that it was good for us just to realize that there are things in the city that can help us to realize that kind of history.
Yeah, wow. So it's a part of all of the events that is happening for Glendale's Pride, and there's constantly so much going on. So again, it's one of those things of like feeling accepted. And in the chat, there's been some links put up for the YouTube chat, so you can look at those. Not only is it some videos, but is also websites and such that are helpful, and of different groups in Glendale that are, working towards this.
And we'd also like to, or I would like to thank each of our guests who have been here with us today, Dave and Johnny and Charlie and Yali and Eric and Madeline and Demi. It's been awesome hanging out with you today too, my dear. Wow, I can't believe the growth that has happened over the years for all of us, not just in Glendale, but for around this world. I listen to your young stories, and I am in awe of what you have not had to go through to get here. And anybody have some last words for us? We're coming to an end here.
I just wanted to say that I want to give everyone in here like the biggest hug.
Yes.
This has been like so sweet, especially, coming off like a year plus of being indoors. We like just started doing the in-person events, and I have gotten to hug some of you in real life. It's so awesome having been part of this community, accepted so like quickly and easily, and everyone's just like so nice, hardworking, just like the best group of people I could hope to meet.
Just say, I think, the whole conversation that we've been having is really the shift that we've seen in our beloved Jewel City from, where we were and where we're going and where we're at right now. And I know that we've kind of hit on it a couple of times when we've gone back and forth with you, but I'm interested to hear if you have any experiences from Glendale that you want to share.
I have been so blessed. I have not lost any friends or family. I don't know if I've come out yet. I've just been me, but if anybody asked if I were gay, I would always say yes. And I don't take it for granted, because I have seen some people that I have loved suffer and die because of the hate. And just be you. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. Don't throw it in the face. Just be you and love them. And that's hard sometimes, as I think it was Dave said earlier, somebody, or Eric, that we have gone through this process. And when we come out to somebody, we have to remember that they have to go through it. So we need to be tender to them also. And I'm just honored to be here with you all. You're some beautiful folks, and I've enjoyed your stories. And I too want hugs.
May I add on to that something that's been talked around as part of the experience, just a couple of things. We talk a lot about coming out, and many people have alluded to this. I think Eric talked about it being a process. I like to think of it as inviting people in and sharing those parts of you, and that's something that you're gonna do through your whole life. And also, it is okay to change your understanding of yourself. And if other people's understandings of themselves in your life changes, that is also okay. That is something I think that we all struggle with a lot. And it's one of those things that is often left unsaid. So, if you think you're bi and then you realize you're actually gay, that's also an okay thing. And if it changes over your life, which it might very well, it's okay.
Just say, you said something that I just kind of thought of when you say, you haven't necessarily come out to certain people or whatever it might be. I feel like that way sometimes. And I think that my voice, it's very distinctive. And I get recognized sometimes when I'm out and about, and people will recognize me from social media. But I had a coworker, And it was an older lady. And I've never had to come out to really anyone ever since I was like 18. Of course, when I was in high school, like, I'd always be like, no, I'm not gay. What are you talking about? But then afterwards, of course I came out. But we were just talking and we were talking about dating, and she's like, oh, yeah, well, don't worry, dating's hard right now. I was like, I know. And we're just talking. She's like, don't worry, you'll find the right girl one day and she'll love you. And I was all like, you think, wow, thank you, I guess. Thank you. So, and then I had to come out to her, and I was like, I haven't come out in years. So that was a fun experience. So it's true, though. You never know. And I think that just what we're talking about, where you don't want to assume certain things about people, and you don't want to, think, oh, they're obviously gay or whatever, because one, they might not be out yet, or they might not be, in that mindset yet. So you never know. And I guess the takeaway would be, don't ever assume. But then again, I guess most of the people that I interact with just assume. But I always drop subtle hints. I'm always like, oh, my boyfriend or whatever it might be. So I guess that's my story for that.
If anyone else has any experiences they want to share, we're coming up to a close of this, and just a thank you for everyone being here. It's been such a great experience hearing everyone's stories, and yeah.
It's truly, truly wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us, for participating. On behalf of everyone, all of us at Glendale Library Arts and Culture, all the guests, hosts and audience for joining. And this has been so fascinating, heartfelt, illuminating, brave, for everyone to participate. I know everybody's got impacted schedules, and the whole Glendale community and beyond. We have people joining from all across the United States, and probably even, in other countries, and watching and learning, and I'm really grateful for your participation. I also want to mention that to be sure to check out the social media of our community partners and supporters, such as GlendaleOUT and Gallus and the Gay Straight Alliances. These are excellent resources. And also Glendale Library Arts and Culture. Be sure to check out more of our great programs on eglendale.org and reflectspace.org, websites for past, current, and upcoming shows and events and other valuable resources. A lot of gratitude to everyone, and happy Pride, June, and the rest of the year and months of the year as well. Thank you all. Take care.